speaking of Jericho, here he is breaking up with his heater already after 2 weeks, Mr. Hughes. Right. And this was a nothing match, but I don't know. I guess, were you trying to channel a little Ralphus here by bringing out the Fink, Howard Finkel?
Absolutely. It was funny. Like I said, I think, and I'm not sure on this, but I think, Russo definitely, I believe, was a catalyst in bringing in Jericho. I could be wrong, but I know, like I said before, if people remember the countdown where Jericho was introduced as Y2J, and for a long time it was just like, this numbers counting down. And when he got introduced, his music, him, like the perfect guy, like I said, people who were WWF diehards who maybe didn't know who he was were all immediately through word of mouth in the arena. That's the guy for WCW. Now at WCW, and Jericho's interesting because he's got some real credit. He trained in Japan and definitely knew what he's doing, but he did have some like humor chops, Gaga chops, especially with Ralphus, if people remember that, and which I thought was great, because he was, Ralphus was like his bodyguard, a guy who had like a belly and ill-fitting shirt and was just a goofball. So it all worked pretty heavily, and I found Jericho was a very charismatic, smart aleck kind of guy that could be like also played the good cowardly heel thing, but also had ability. So we were always like pushing him, and then I don't know, since you got to just go through some growing pains or whatever, or just Vince seemed to be not convinced about Jericho, so it's like, oh, what are we gonna do with him? But he, at the same time, he did wasn't quite pushing him. So definitely the Fink thing was a I don't know, I can't remember exactly, but certainly people like, oh, look, this is what worked great at WCW, and then like is obviously gimmick infringement, if you will, but and then like, oh yeah, the Fink, everyone loves the Fink and his weirdness. So it didn't quite gel, but it didn't matter because Jericho went off, and
yeah, this is a very odd little moment for Jericho because he gets to WWE and he's kind of like pushed down the ranks almost instantly, and this is where we're at. And I feel this happened a lot with guys that jumped. You'd have to like prove yourself you'd have to get over all over again in WWE, and like I feel like they really made you eat crow and pay your dues for like 6 months before they gave you a look again. And I always felt like that was counterintuitive in terms of like getting the audience behind the wrestler, because to the audience, if they haven't seen Jericho in WCW, he just looks like a scrub.
I couldn't agree more. It was something I never was liked, because once he's your guy, he's your guy.
Yeah.
And you can make him the greatest thing in the world. There's a weird thing, and it's just maybe a holdover of old stuff and competitiveness between promoters or whatever. And, it certainly wasn't just Vince. We're like, okay, now you're here. Now if you're a mid guy here and you're a big guy there, that just makes our organization look that much stronger. And I would argue like, no, it doesn't, not really. And, and I've even heard, same thing happened when Bret Hart went to WCW, which I thought was like a total missed opportunity with like, okay, let's just put him in the ranks a little bit. When after the Montreal screw job, when I'm like, that's one of the most high profile weird things. They should have just put him on top immediately, and
exactly.
Because then you're getting all the rub from the controversy from the other one, which is what the Outsiders did so incredibly when they went over, because people are still like, smart marks or pseudo smart marks are like, are they still working for WWF or this and that? So you're getting all your WWF, accolades and presenting them at the other one. And it's like, that all works. So
I think that's exactly why the NWO angle works so well at first. You really like, some people really thought, I think the reason they didn't do that with Bret Hart is because Hogan knew that and he didn't want to give up his spot.
Yeah. But even they could have done something more, and it's not even about just the spot. They should have just done some things more high profile, even if they were there's ways to stall people or bury them high profile, hurt them, whatever, you know what I mean? And not just like, let them flounder, so to speak.